More than 50,000 professionals chose Formlabs 3D printers to develop many of the great products you use every day. Now they can push their work even further. Introducing the Form 3 and the Form 3L. We've redesigned the print engine to make a leap forward in reliability and print quality, using linear illumination and a flexible tank to turn liquid resin into flawless prints. We call this low-force stereolithography, an advanced form of stereolithography that balances high detail and high speed. Use your time more efficiently with a printer you can trust to deliver results. Easily add printers to keep up with demand, and take advantage of an ever-expanding range of functional materials for rigorous testing and production. Collaborate across teams and locations as your business grows by starting prints remotely and moving through a shared print queue. Low-force stereolithography was developed to scale. Now easily print large, detailed parts in-house with the Form 3L. Whatever you're designing, wherever you're starting from, Formlabs tools help anyone make anything.
Hello everybody, welcome. My name is Ken and I'm one of the co-founders of Shop3D.ca. Welcome to our live launch of the Form 3L 3D printer here at Shop3D.ca. Today I have myself and also my senior applications engineer, Felix, who will be taking you through the system. We're gonna make this fun, we're gonna make this live. This is a live show, so maybe there'll be some mistakes, but we'll put up with it because we wanna keep it fun and engaging for all of you. So, just a little bit about Shop3D.ca. We are actually one of the first Formlabs resellers here in Canada. So we brought Formlabs to Canada about 4 years ago with the Form 2, and then we had the Form 3, and now finally, you've all been waiting for the Form 3L, which is finally here. We primarily serve the Canadian market, so we have our flagship store in Vancouver, serving the West Coast, and we also have our Mississauga store here, serving the GTA and the East Coast here, which is our headquarters. So today's agenda is going to be a live agenda. What we want to do is we want to take you through some of the technical specifications of the Form 3L, as well as some of the practical applications. And we do have a unit here in our showroom for demo. Now, the reason why we're doing this live show is because with COVID, we understand that it's not feasible for everybody to come out to the showroom. So we want to make it a lot of fun, and you'll see just as much as you would if you were actually here in person. So those are all the pretty much the housekeeping notes that I have. I do want to make this engaging, so I want to encourage all of you to take part in the polls that we pull out, as well as do question and answer. So whatever questions you have, feel free to type it in the question and answer box, and we will try to answer it live in person here. I don't guarantee that we'll go through all of the questions, but we'll get through as many as we can, and we'll answer any afterward if we don't get to it. Now, without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Felix so we can see what this is all about.
Thanks, Ken. Hi, everybody. I'm super excited to show you the Form 3L. So without any more delay, let's unveil it. So as you can see, this thing is massive. It comes in at about 120 pounds. We actually needed 2 people to lift it, and 3 people probably would have been better. As you can see, it's big. I like it a lot. And you know what? We're going to go back to Ken for some technical specs first, some overviews, and then we're going to dive into the machine a little bit more.
Yeah, don't worry, guys. We're going to see a lot more of the Form 3L today. But first, just want to get some of the technical specs out of the way. I think everybody kind of has an idea of what the Form 3L is like, but we'll go through some of those specs with you, and let's start with the similarities first. Now, those of you who are familiar with the Form 3 system will know that it uses low-force stereolithography. So that being said, we're going to use the same technology here. It's been very successful. It's given us great detailed prints. And the difference in the Form 3L is that it has 2 LPU systems in it, so it can cover the much larger build volume all the way through the bed. And we'll kind of show you how that works in tandem in a little bit as well. The other similarity is you'll find that we'll be able to use the same resin cartridges between the systems. So if you already have a Form 3, you'll be able to use the same resin cartridges in the Form 3L, and there are 2 slots for those cartridges. Construction of the unit, as Felix mentioned, is big, it's heavy. He says it took 2 people to lift it, but I really wanted 3 people to lift it because that was definitely sagging on my side. And it's made of metal and polycarbonate, and the feel is what you would expect from a premium printer. And finally, the differences that I want to get into are also very striking, but very familiar as well. So in terms of the biggest thing that has changed with the Form 3L is, of course, build volume. So we're looking at a 13.2 by 7.9 by 11.8 build volume. Now, just as a comparison, for those of you who are familiar with FFF machines, this is going to be a very similar build volume to the Ultimaker S5, which is one of our larger FFF printers here. So you're getting a huge build volume with an SLA quality print. So that is what we're really excited about, and that is really the biggest feature of the Form 3L. The next thing is, if we compare this to the Form 3, we're looking at 5 times the build volume. So just in terms of like X, Y, Z, we're increasing those dimensions in all categories, resulting in the 5x build volume increase. And the larger, the resin tank is of course larger as well to accommodate larger prints. Now I think that's enough of the technical specs. We can get into it deeper if you'd like, but for now, let's take a look at the Form 3L, in detail with Felix. So Felix, take us through the system and let's see what it's all about.
Thanks, Ken. That's a great overview. So let's start in the beginning. We're going to start with the cover. It is big, it is heavy, but it's very easy to lift it because there's actually a spring here that helps you out with closing it and opening it, and it stays upright like this whenever you have to handle the machine in any way. The next thing you might notice, we're going to mention some very familiar terms here. So you have the build platform here, the resin tank here, and then the cartridges on the side. So let's start with the platform. So in order to remove it, you undo the clip, and you have these big two big cast iron sort of handles here. So it's very easy to handle it. You're not going to risk dropping your parts anywhere or anything like that. And it sits very nice on the table, so you're able to hold it down while you remove your prints. I do want to actually pull the Form 3 platform and do a side-by-side sort of comparison of the two. As you can see, like Ken said, it's 5 times the build volume, but it's kind of hard to imagine that. So you can kind of see the difference between the two, how much bigger this is, and how much taller it is as well. That was a big limitation with SLA printing before.
Hey Felix, in terms of that build platform, it looks a lot bigger and it looks just as beefy as the one before. How heavy is it? Do you know? How does it feel to you?
It feels pretty heavy. It feels very sturdy, but I think the biggest question here is can the printer handle that type of weight? Especially with those cast iron handles that are heavy, and just overall, you scaled up the entire bed quite a bit, and you're gonna have you maybe 1 liter or 2 liters of parts on it at a time. So Formula has actually increased the sort of this cantilever arm here, and the clip is a little bit more sturdy as well. They thickened up everything here, so the rail, the rod. And everything associated with the printer is just a little bit more beefy and a little bit more industrial, and everything feels very, 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 very good, I gotta say. Next thing, we're gonna move on to the resin tank.
Yeah,
so,
Felix, that's a huge resin tank. How much are we talking in terms of volume of resin that tank can actually hold?
Yeah, this tank is huge. So it's the same type of technology, right? You have this flexible film here. You have the wiper. Everything is very familiar to the Form 3. In terms of how much it can hold, the minimum amount is going to be around 800 milliliters into it on the initial fill. But it can actually hold up to about 3 liters of resin at a time. So whenever you set up a new resin tank or a new material, you're going to actually grab one of your resin cartridges, you're going to unscrew it, you're going to pour basically all of it in here just to speed up the process a bit on the initial setup. And then once you're done with that, you start a print just like you would on the Form 3. And that's, nothing really changed in terms of that workflow.
Now, when you had the build platform in there, the print does look illuminated. I think there are new LEDs on this unit?
Yeah, there are. Thank you for reminding me. So we have one on here, and one on this side, and they illuminate the entire build volume very, very well. This is, the Form 3 might be sort of like this, sort of in an office environment, very well lit, maybe even customer facing, depending on what type of business you have. This unit is a little bit more industrial, and it might not make it, to these well-lit rooms. So that's why I think that the LEDs are really, really nice, on production floors, or, in a little bit of a different type of environment. It really helps seeing what's going on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, no one puts proper lights into a print farm. They just stick as many printers in there as possible.
Exactly.
So having some illumination not only makes it more safe, but way cooler as well. And let's face it, printers with LEDs inside are just cool looking. I do have a question for you, Felix, though, and it's about the dual cartridge, the dual LPU inside the system. That's going to be one big feature as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for sure. So maybe we can look inside. It's a little bit awkward to point the camera at it, but there's actually two LPUs, and they're identical to the one on the Form 3. But what actually happens is that they're actually offset in order to cover the entire build volume, or the entire build platform. So they sometimes would work at the same time, or they would work in tandem to print big parts.
Okay, and we're going to get to the most impressive feature that I know is your favorite. So bring it to us. I know you've been holding this back, but what's new on this that we don't have on the Form 3?
Yeah, this is actually a feature that we have never seen on the Form 1, the Form 2, the Form 3 just wasn't there. It didn't make it through the engineering stages, I guess. But on the back of the machine here, there's actually a power switch. And for a lot of you, you take that for granted, but we at Shop3D don't, because we use the Form 2s and the Form 3s. And whenever you have to reset the printer, or just turn it off for the weekend, you actually have to pull the plug out, and then it's going to be dangling on the floor, and then you have to plug it back in. And it's not that much of a hassle, but the power switch makes it a lot more user-friendly. I'm going to ask you, Ken, what is your favorite feature?
My favorite feature, it's got to be the big build volume. I think just the flexibility of either printing tons of different parts, at once, or one really large part, the smooth part. I think with Halloween coming, people are going to want to make these large masks and helmets with it, and I think that's really exciting for the Form 3L.
I did forget to mention one thing, Ken. A big thing about SLA 3D printers that they have to be level on whatever platform they sit on. So if you're familiar with the Form 3, there's these plastic discs that you slide underneath in order to level the 4 feet on each side. So now you have this much bigger one, and it's not plastic anymore. It's made out of some kind of sheet metal, probably steel or something like that. And it's really a lot easier to slide this in and move the feet up and down, because this is 120 pounds. So they really thought about everything.
So what's the importance of having a level printer, with SLA? I mean, we always talk about leveling in FFF printers, but this is an entirely different process, and it's for an entirely different reason, right?
Yes, 100%. So think about a bowl of water. If your table is not level, that's the water level is actually sort of on an angle, and that's going to be a problem sometimes on these machines, because whenever the platform actually dunks into the bed, you want to make sure that you have a level surface, and that the resin is not higher on one side than it is on the other, especially on the bigger plates. That's going to be an issue, so you want to make sure that everything is level.
Great, Felix, thanks so much. I'm going to bring it back here into the studio and talk a little bit about pre-orders and pre-order statuses. I know this is going to be the next big question on everybody's mind, and so I just want to clear that up really well. We recently had the launch of the Form 3L here in Canada, and this is the beginning of all the units shipping. So whoever has placed in a pre-order previously, before September 15th, you can expect to get your units in Q4 of 2020. So very, very imminent shipping times. For those who are interested in getting a unit now, or placing a pre-order now, what will happen is you'll probably get your unit in Q1 of 2021. So there is a little bit of a lead time left in terms of shipping new units out. So for those of you who pre-ordered early, thank you. You are in the queue first, and we'll be getting the first units that launch to Canada. And then in terms of pricing of the unit, so the Form 3L is priced at $15,075 currently with the exchange, and this is available for pre-order on our site right now. And what it comes with is it's going to come with the build platform, the large resin tank, and the finishing kit for the Form 3L. And in order to place an order, it's as easy as simply going onto their website and placing an order there, and we'll confirm all the details with you. Or you can give us a call. Come to our website, shop3d.ca, look at all the articles and blogs that we have with the Form 3 so you can make a properly informed decision, and then give us a call to see if this fits your application before placing an order. And this is something that we're happy to do with all of our customers here at Shop3D, as we are very hands-on. I want to bring it back to Felix right now and talk a little bit about applications, because I just brushed on that right away. I think this is a big game changer in terms of SLA, to have a printer this large, this accessible at this price, for everybody pretty much. Felix, who is, what problem is the Form 3L here to solve for our customers?
Well, right off the bat, you can say that it solves the problem of printing big SLA parts at an affordable price, right? So before the Form 3L, printing SLA parts at this volume was inaccessible to a lot of people. You're not going to be spending $15,000 on a machine like this. You were going to be spending $250,000 on a machine like this. So first of all, it brings it to a lot more people, a lot more businesses, service bureaus, engineering firms, design firms, architecture firms. And it's important to have that build volume because the surface finish is impeccable on these prints, just like the Form 3, prints. So it's solving this problem of how do I print really big parts that need minimal post-processing. It's not like anything else we've seen.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the print that you have in your hand, which is the sample print for the Form 3L, that's a tremendous looking print. Tell me a little bit about that sample print. Do you know how long it takes to print or how that was printed?
Yeah, so this was actually printed right on the build file form like this. And it was actually a batch print. So you have around maybe 7 by 4. So that's another application of it. We'll get to it in a bit. But it prints upright like this. And it's at 100 microns. And it probably took around maybe 24 hours for the entire batch. First of all, this is a print you couldn't have done before on the Form 3 or a lot of other printers, to be honest. And it looks amazing. It's a prototype for a vacuum. And you can print quite a bit of them, do some stress testing, maybe some kind of study about it. But the batch printing is another application here. Because you have the space, number one, you have the space, and then you have the two LPUs working together, it actually speeds up the prints at some points. So that's one application.
Yeah, for sure. And I think people who have not compared SLA prints to FFF prints, we're really looking at much more detailed, much smoother surface quality on SLA prints. And that is the most appealing part. And one of the most common problems that people run into is they always have to make that choice and compromise of, do I get a FFF printer for a large build volume, or do I get an SLA printer with a much smaller build volume, but the surface quality that they require? And now I think with the Form 3L, we're kind of mitigating some of that compromise and going to an area where we no longer have to compromise as much. So I got another question for you, Felix. If someone already has a Form 3, why would they want to add a Form 3L, or should they add a Form 3L? And what kind of challenges do they expect in implementing a Form 3L into their existing system?
Yeah, so that's a good question. If you already have a Form 3, you'll probably be printing, with the Form 3 volume, and it's a limiting thing, especially if you don't have a FFF 3 printer or anything else that's a larger volume. So, printing batches is a lot more hands-on. You can only fill it up to a certain size, and maybe that cycle time is 6 hours. If you get the Form 3L, for example, you can load up a lot more parts, make that cycle time maybe 24 hours, so you have a lot less labor time. Another thing that if you have the Form 3L is now you're able to sort of prioritize what type of prints you do on each printer. If you have large prints like this, it goes on the 3L. If you have very fine detail prints, it goes on the Form 3 because it can achieve the 25 micron layer height, for example, on a castable wax resin, where it's really, really important to have that really nice detail. Yeah.
Great. I got another question in terms of applications. It sounds like we're talking a lot about build volume, about batch printing. So, that automatically leads me to think that the people who would desire this printer the most are probably some of the service bureaus out there, and those are a lot of our customers. What other applications or customers, would benefit most from having the Form 3L? Like, what industries do you see, Felix?
It's good that you mentioned the service bureau because that's a big one. Depending what size of a service bureau you are, if you're small, maybe you have the Form 3, and now you have clients that come to you that want bigger parts, just like this vacuum attachment, for example. So you were turning them away or maybe offering them the FFF 3D printers, and they were like, no, I don't like the quality. So now if you have the Form 3L, which comes in at a very affordable price, and you're going to be printing a lot with it, really big parts. So the return on investment is really quick as well. So now those service bureaus can take those jobs and can offer that service to their clients. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so I think at this point, Felix, I think we've got a good look at the Form 3L. Let's get to some questions that we have from some of our customers. And I think at the same time, what we'll do is we'll also see if we can throw a poll on as well so people can get engaged and fill out a poll while we are answering questions live here. Okay, so the first question I have is from Dave. And Dave is asking, what is the deal with the seam line? Can you tell us a little bit more about that, Felix?
For sure, that's a good question. So we did mention the two LPUs, right? So I'm gonna demonstrate it actually on the platform itself here. Just gonna make some space and pull out the sprint. I'll put it over there. So, like we mentioned, there's two LPUs. So roughly there's 3 zones on this machine. So you have zone 1 right here, which only one LPU can reach. You have the overlap zone, which is somewhere in the middle. And then you have zone 2, which the other LPU can reach. So when you're printing big parts like this, for example, there's going to be a point where one LPU, let's call it LPU 1, can't reach the other side of the part. So the LPU 2 now picks up that workload. And that happens to be right exactly in the middle of the plate here. Now, a few things about the seam line is that it's really not that visible, especially on bigger prints and more sort of these matte materials. It's a little bit harder to spot. Yeah, so the seam line is not, it's also visualized actually on preform, which is a great thing. So now you can actually orient your parts in a certain way, or or lay them out in a certain way so that you can avoid that seam line if that's something that's bothering you.
Yeah, and I think we're kind of making it out a little bit more serious than it really is. I think over time, as the preform team is able to optimize the system, we're going to see less and less issues with the seam line. It'll probably be a thing of the past, in a couple months once we continually update the firmware and the optimization of the printer. I'm going to move to the next question.
Sorry to cut you off,
go ahead.
Ken. I did remember something about the seam line. It's something that somebody asked me not too long ago. They asked me about accuracy of the, or dimensional accuracy of the print. Does it affect it? So yes and no. For small prints, imagine like a 10 by 10 by 10 cube. If that's on the seam line for whatever reason, you're going to have about 100 to 200 micron of distortion around that seam line. So that translates to less than 1% of dimensional sort of instability, let's call it. But even 0.1 to 0.2 millimeters is not that bad. When it comes to really big parts, it actually becomes non-existent. It has no effect on dimensional accuracy. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Great, that makes a lot of sense to me. I have another question here from Clarence. And Clarence is asking, what are the prices of the tanks and build plates because it's not available yet? So yeah, I think I can take that question. So it's going to be about $485 Canadian. This is converted from the American price once it's available. So it is going to be a little bit more than the Form 3, and that's to be expected because we're dealing with much bigger items for both the build tank and the build platform. I think they're both around $480 Canadian in terms of price. Okay, I got another question here from James. And the question is about resin, Felix. What resins are we looking to start with that are optimized for the system?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Formlabs is going to be prioritizing print success, right? So we're not going to be seeing right off the bat really good quality. Oh, sorry, the quality is going to be there, but it's not going to be prioritized. So very small details are still going to have some trouble printing. There's going to be around 6 resins. So it's going to be the flexible, the elastic, the gray, the black, and the rigid, and I'm forgetting one. Hopefully we can answer that later. But those are going to be the first ones, and all of those print settings are going to be at 100 microns, and they're going to be called beta settings. So right off the bat, when you get the 3L, that's what you're going to have available. But Formlabs actually made this really nice schedule of when things are going to be rolling out. So those six beta resins are going to move on to sort of the normal operation where everything is optimized. So you have print success optimized, you have quality optimized, you have print speed optimized. In about 2 to 3 months of time.
Yeah, and I think that brings us to another question, which is very much related. And the question is there a lot of print failures when printing such large prints? I think you'd answered that a little bit as well, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on what optimization for success really means.
Yeah, so that's it's a good question, and it's always a balance. When you're starting out with a resin, especially at this size, you're going to be prioritizing success rate, right? Because imagine this part here, or maybe a build plate full of these. You're going to be maybe using up a liter of resin, 2 liters of resin at a time per run. So the cost of failure is really, really high. So what Formlabs is doing is sacrificing some settings at the beginning in order to get some sort of baseline data so that they can optimize it later for both quality, success, and speed. So we're going to be starting out with a little bit slower prints, a little bit less detail and very, very fine features, but eventually we're going to be moving on to the same success rate the Form 3 has.
Yeah, I think that's a smart optimization on their part, especially since people who are getting the Form 3L are either trying to do batches and trying to do large prints, and really, the paramount thing is going to be success. And if you wanted those high resolution, smaller micron prints, the Form 3 is already available now and doing that for you. So I think it makes a lot of sense to optimize for success from the get-go. Another question, also from Clarence, is how long do the build plate and tanks last, Felix?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the build plate lasts basically forever if you treat it right. If you're not going to be scratching at it too much, they're going to be lasting for a very long time. We see at least a year, 2 years of use on it if people take care of them properly. With the resin tank, that's a bit of a different question. Depending on the resin that you're using, you're going to see between 4 to, I believe it was 20 weeks, depending on the resin. And Formlabs has a really good guide on their website that will tell you exactly how long each resin would last in the tank. Or how long the tank would last with the resin.
Yeah, with the larger and slightly more expensive resin tanks, we're really expecting people to not have the entire portfolio of Formlabs resins, to start with, because not only do you need a huge cabinet just to store all those tanks, but because the printer will be kind of preoccupied printing these larger prints, you probably won't have as much time to keep swapping out different resins. So I would say, if we stick to like 4 or 5 resins, that would keep things optimal, at least for 1 unit from the get-go. And then I have another question here, Felix, from Phil. The website shows that the finishing kit is different than the Formlabs launch webinar showed. Can you clarify what the finishing kit looks like? Yes, I think we can. So we do have a picture of what the finishing kit looks like. I'll have the team try to pull that up, but it is going to be a very different manual finishing kit, right, Felix?
Yeah, it's a little bit different. It's since you're going to be pouring so much more resin into it, it needs to be a little bit more safe to use. So it's made out of, I believe it's aluminum or sheet metal, and it's going to be fully enclosed when you close it. So there's a seal on it as well. So that's the finishing kit for now.
Yeah, and I think the motivation for the finishing kit, having it being metal, and if you were using large amounts of IPA to clean, is that if it did catch fire or ignite for any reason, I think the lid automatically closes to put out the flames, and I think that's the motivation for the finishing kit. I can definitely confirm that, but I believe that that is the motivation for the new finishing kit, right, Felix?
Yeah, that's right.
Perfect. Okay, I think I have one last question, and the question is, with 2 LPU units, is it faster than the Form 3? And I think this gets asked quite a bit, so probably good for us to clear out, Felix.
For sure, sometimes. So yes or no. If you're going to be, zoom into display it again, if you're going to be printing, say, a bunch of these parts sort of laid out like this, so you're going to have a row right here and a row right here, you're going to see a little bit of an increased speed, and that's because both LPUs can work at the same time, curing both sides of the plate. So instead of one LPU sort of doing the entire motion and the laser pointing at these directions, you're sort of, it's not going to be a 50% decrease, but it's going to be a little bit faster than if it was just one big LPU, for example.
Perfect. Okay, I think that's all the questions that I see right now. I want to thank everybody for attending, for participating, and I hope you've enjoyed our live launch here. We wanted to make it a little bit more special than just having a webinar and going through slides. So we made this specifically for you, and a lot of our team, our production team, put a lot of work into it. So I definitely want to get some feedback from you guys if possible. So feel free to mention us on your social media feeds, on our social media feeds. Let us know if you liked it, or if you'd like to see something else that we didn't include on our live launch. We'd love to develop that and make it something better for the next time. We will be doing more of these live launches as we go on, because this is something that we believe that people can get a lot of value at while staying at home, while staying safe, but still getting that interactivity with us and being able to see everything in our showroom. That being said, we do have a webinar coming up on Friday of this week, and it will be with BASF. And it will be going through their line of filaments with Felix and Nate, the application engineer for BASF. And we'll take you through the lineup for BASF as well. So that will be available for sign up now, and it will showcase on Friday. And finally, just to wrap things up here, it's easy for you to get in touch with us. So feel free to chat on our website, email us, give us a call. We're here and available for you. Shop3D is very customer focused reseller, and we focus on getting you to the right applications, finding you the tools and the right solutions before anything, and that is a paramount priority for us, and that's with everybody on our team. So feel free to reach out to me, to Felix, or any one of our account managers as well if you have further questions about the Form 3L. That being said, I just want to take one last moment to both thank our team here, our production team at Shop3D. Felix, thank you so much for the great dive into the Form 3L. I want to thank Formlabs for supplying us with the unit. And with that being said, everybody, have a great day.